Kendrick Lamar is known for having layers and levels to his lyricism, but this may be one of the deepest ones of them all. Now, we all know Miss Morale and the Big Steppers is a very different album on paper than GNX, but that doesn't mean there aren't connections and correlations between the two. And there's one song on that album that, since GNX has dropped, has a lot of people talking and referring back to that song. I'm talking about Silent Hill with Kodak Black. Now, I'm gonna need you guys to stay with me today while I piece this one together, because I think this is a really, really interesting story, and there's, some really wild connections and correlations, but when you start to peel back the layers and you start to look at it, well, there is just some eerie similarities and just some meticulous details behind the scenes that would make sense for a Kendrick Lamar masterstroke. And first and foremost, I want to shout out Justin Hunte, aka the Company Man. He is one of the most intelligent creators in this space. I mean, from his commentary, his analysis, to his journalism, he has been a huge and influential figure in hip-hop for a long time now. He's the one who first put me onto this story and this possible theory. And then I want to shout out Thought Crimes, who we are about to dive into, in their podcast, which first positions and originates this idea. Both channels' links I will put below if you guys want to go check out and support. But let's dive into this and see if we can start to build this picture.
Guess my gangster. Guess my gangster.
Well, Addy said I don't get the correlation. Well, okay. On Silent Hill, Mr. Morale and the Big Steppers, you have spiritually the Christ consciousness.
Before we get into this in.
Go ahead.
All right. Sorry about that. Oh, that's the part we left out. Kodak Black is featured on Silent Hill with Kendrick Lamar. He ended up having a run-in with one of Xxxtentacion's killers. They had a conversation. Now, the track that Kodak Black is featured on with Kendrick Lamar is talking about hiding behind your money. And he's talking about Peekaboo. You know, basically, we see what's going on because there are subliminals layered on Mr. Morale and the Big Steppers.
Yeah,
pretty much.
There are lots of layers. Well, it's a typical Kendrick album, isn't it? But the first usage of Kendrick going Peekaboo is not on this title track from GNX. It goes years ago back to Mr. Morale and the Big Steppers, and specifically Silent Hill. Let's keep it running.
He's saying on Silent Hill, Peekaboo, I know what you did, Drake. And I have Kodak Black on the same album that in the track Silent Hill, whereas Prince stated he met up when Kodak was in prison. He crossed paths with the person who murdered Xxxtentacion.
Now, here's the thing about it, okay? The thing is this. What's going on, if you guys have not been paying attention, y'all saw recently with the petition for UMG, okay? Now, what is the guy saying? Mr. Williams, I believe his name is. He wants his evidence fully introduced because even his own attorney feels he did not get a fair shake. And
so he's talking about one of Tentacion's killers, which is Dedrick Williams, and his lawyer is trying to appeal the case and wants to depose the boy, wants to depose Drake. Why? Why? That's key. Why would you feel like Drake is a key witness to a murder case for XXXTentacion?
Of all the witnesses, again, there's depositions, there's situations where, you know, again, people aren't citizens of Florida or whatever the case is, so there's ways you got to move around that. But he's saying here, hold on now. I had Drake up on that list, and the judge struck him off the list.
Which is why it's important when you listen to Mr. Morale and the Big Steppers, you're getting Christ consciousness from Kendrick Lamar spiritually.
It's a great
like
summary.
Even on Silent Hill, when he said Peekaboo to Drake, pretty much you're hiding behind your power and your money, but you're not basically looking at the damage that you allegedly done in other people's lives. And in particular for this track, we're talking about with Xxxtentacion. When you go to G and X, it's a transformation where Kendrick is basically the boogeyman. So we go from Christ consciousness on Mr. Morale and
I kind of describe this as Kendrick now being like a warrior monk for me, he found his spirituality. He found his inner peace in dealing with that generational trauma that Miss Morale and the Big Steppers tries to face, and really turning that lens inward and dealing with all of that. And it feels like G and X and the Drake beef especially, like Kendrick is now fulfilled. He's now at peace and at oneness with himself. And he's now turning his mission, instead of being within, outward. And now he's going to go to war. He's not afraid to go to battle for the culture, for his beliefs, to fight for what he stands in. And yet at the same time, you have this dichotomy and this balance of, while there's this Kendrick that isn't afraid of the drama, that isn't afraid of stepping up to whoever needs to be stepped up to, he also still has this security about himself, this composure, this very laid back attitude, this Gemini spirit as he walks through music videos and seems like he could care less whether he delivers the lyrics or not. Like he's just always in control, always at peace with oneself. Like he has that Mr. Morale spirit, and yet there's still that warrior side to Kendrick that's really coming out, right? That's coming out now with the G and X's. That's been coming out with the Drake beef and Watch the Party Die and all of that. Anyways.
Steppers, we talk about Christ consciousness, meditation, the dark night of the soul, going through the shadow self, and also the shadow self of the culture, right? Having the heart part 5. Then on GNX, the boogeyman is fully out, where at the beginning the sample says, give your brother a helping hand. Helping hand is what Xxxtentacion was doing. Now you have a full track called Peekaboo, where
the helping hand challenge. We'll get into that.
Kendrick Lamar is the boogeyman, and he's like, peekaboo, nigga. Now it's about to get heated up. This is why it makes sense when Hitta was in our chat in the live that we did not too long ago.
Hitta J3.
Hitta said, Dark Conj, I gotta watch and wait. A lot of big things is gonna happen. And when you hear Peekaboo on GNX, like, people are gonna give GNX album more and more and more credit as other things unfold. But the Peekaboo.
What's crazy is this was a month ago. I'm taking her to Vegas with me because there are so many things that are coming true later on. Aren't we discovering more and more as characters reveal themselves, as more news comes out exposing certain people that Kendrick has been at war with?
The Peekaboo track in and of itself is a continuation to the track Silent Hill, and that sample is paying homage to Xxxtentacion.
It's a helping hand challenge.
The helping hand challenge, which
remember Drake trolled.
He trolled
him with the God's plan.
God's plan.
And that's why Kendrick is trolling him.
So listen, folks, just think about that, right? When people first heard Silent Hill, nobody thought about too much of anything. No. Maybe some hip-hop heads kind of caught something. But for him to say, Peekaboo, I see you, what did he say here? He says, Peekaboo can't hide behind your money, dog. Now, if you go back to this track here, Kendrick Lamar, it's very minimalistic in his approach throughout the,
But I think there's some things, and we're gonna dive into Silent Hill. And then we're going to dive into Peekaboo. And we're going to do a cross-examination of this. So again, stay with me through this process. But I think one thing that's important is that we need to establish some motive here. We need to establish some more history. Because one of the important things is that there has been a feud between XXXTentacion and Drake. It's not like this is coming out of left field. This is coming out of nowhere, right? Drake, the boy, is always known for his subliminals. He's always known for his sneak disses and trolling. Every single album he's going to talk about Rihanna. He's obsessed with her. Every single album he's going to have some sublims or dealing with Kanye West. And for a while, we were having this situation of Drake just throwing his little indirects that could easily be taken and interpreted as going after the Florida rapper. Now, things got so bad for Tentacion that he went on his Instagram Live. I remember when he did a conversation with He Who Must Not Be Named, aka Mr. DJ Dog Groomer, DJ Diddy Demix, talking about Drake tried to sacrifice him. He also made another post on his Insta saying, if anyone tries to kill me, it was, and he tagged Champagne Poppy, aka Drake, saying he's gonna snitch right now. Now, I know he deleted that after he posted it, but again, that is a very wild public thing to say and to put out there into the world, right? You don't just say that out of nowhere. You don't mention things like that unless you're really feeling worried about your security. You're feeling a type of way, because we all know how serious of an allegation and accusation that is. And he wanted to put that out there into the world. Now, that was before his death. Rest in peace. And he died on the 18th of June, 2018. Less than a year later, what does Drake do? He goes on tour in Europe, and he titles it the Assassination Vacation Tour. Who did he assassinate? Who's he taking a vacation from? And Thought Crimes talks about this, and what's wild to me is if you look at the logo, it's got a palm tree in the crosshairs. There are no palm trees in Toronto. I can think of a place in the United States where palm trees are very iconic. I'm talking about Florida. I'm talking about the home of Xxxtentacion. And Drake's not an idiot. He knows exactly what he's doing by titling it in that way, right? Think about it. Labeling it as an assassination suggests that he put out a hit. And if you look at Mr. Mob Ties' music, if you look at the stylistic changes over the years of Drake's music, from going from this like pining after woman love boy who always deals with relationship issues, who always puts his insecurities out there, to later on when all of a sudden he embraces this street life that he was never raised in, starts talking a lot tougher, starts giving us just that mob ties, that mafioso, you know, he's got connects, he's got contacts, he's all of a sudden a very dangerous man. Well, you can't help but start to wonder that there's some really interesting correlations here. And let's say, look, I'm going full loose change on this with the conspiracy theories, but one thing that you can't deny is that I definitely feel like that tour is intended, titled, to troll the death of Xxtentacion. Drake knows exactly what he's doing by that. And he's capitalizing on someone else's death. He's capitalizing on a situation to try to bolster his tough guy image, to try to bolster his street credibility. Sound like Drake? Yeah, I'm not surprised. And speaking of Drake trolling, there's this video that he did for God's Plan. Now look, I didn't play the volume because I just feel like being a hater today, but basically throughout that video, he takes money and he uses it to give it to people who need it. And he films himself in these situations, giving out money, giving out donations. And a lot of people at the time saw it as a subliminal diss, saw it as a greater troll of Xxtentacion's helping hand challenge. And throughout that challenge, Xxtentacion would go out into his community, would go out into Florida, find people who really needed help. Right? He would buy them supplies. He would give donations. And he really was trying to give back and contribute to his community. And here's the thing. Drake didn't go out in Toronto, right? He didn't go out to anywhere in Canada to really try to support his local area, to try to support people who are in need closer to home or closer to him. No. Where did he go do this? What area do you think he went to in order to give out his donations, in order to provide his help? He went to Florida. It just feels like a very big macro Drake flex of, that's cute, you donated to your area, but you can only give so much. I tell you what, I'm going to come down and I'm going to show off my wealth, and I'm going to show off how I can really make a change, which is a very passive-aggressive Drake type of move. It's a backhanded sort of insult and way of uplifting himself, showing that he's doing something good. It was a feel-good video. It was a feel-good story. He got so many accolades from it, but at the same time, it feels like that there's just some more sinister intentions to that, right? It's sort of like with the light, well, there's some shadows underneath of all of that. And there was a darker motive for it, which was to troll Xxtentacion. So there's our backstory. Now let's go dive into some of these lyrics from Silent Hill first.
Peekaboo can't hide behind your money, dog.
Peekaboo can't hide behind your money, dog. What did Drake do in God's Plan? What did he do to troll Xxtentacion? He ran around giving out his money, using that money to uplift his image. Felt like a great PR move and PR stunt to just boost his credibility that he's truly giving back. And what does the Peekaboo serve as for Kendrick, right? It's almost like he's playing games. The childhood game of Peekaboo, right? Trying to pop out, trying to spot someone, to surprise them. Kendrick sets up his surprise of Peekabooing Drake, of popping out as the boogeyman throughout the beef with Drake and later on throughout GNX. And even these lines,
Know you a joke, my answer's too close, I holla at the moon and shit.
for me could be a subliminal towards Drake, calling Drake a joke. him setting up that he's howling at the moon, right? The monster is getting ready to come out. The monster is coming. And the monster has eyes on his prey. And even referencing his ancestors. You know, what was one of the angles that Kendrick took against Drake, right? That Drake isn't tapped in with the culture. He's not tapped in paying homage. He's not tapped in with the heritage. He's a grifter to it all. So he wouldn't really be tapped in with the ancestors of Kendrick. So he wouldn't really be tapped in with the ancestors of Kendrick. He wouldn't be tapped in to the ancestors and the foundations from which hip-hop grew. And obviously later in the song we have Kodak Black, which was controversial at the time because of all the controversy surrounding Kodak Black and Kendrick putting him onto his song, which now makes you think, is there another layer to this? Because as Thought Crimes pointed out, Kodak Black spent time with one of Tentacion's killers. Now we don't know what was said in that conversation. We don't know what was talked about, but we do know now that there is a connection here, and a connection to the killing of Tentacion. And that connection and that history of feud between Drake and Xxtentacion, well, there's enough of a connection that a lawyer wants to bring Drake into this case. Now let's hop into Peekaboo.
What they talking about? They ain't talking about nothing. What they talking about? They ain't talking about nothing. What they talking about? They ain't talking about nothing. What they talking about? They ain't talking about nothing.
While it's a simple, catchy hook, you could also, again, start to connect parallels from that to Kendrick's angle against Drake. Drake knows how to grift off of the culture, but when it comes to actually saying things of substance, when it comes to actually saying things that truly mean something, well, he's really talking about nothing when you break it down and put it under the microscope. There's also these lines.
Peekaboo, 80 pointers like a Kobe game.
Which, as we broke down, could easily reflect Kobe Bryant, right? L.A. Lakers. Kendrick Lamar, L.A. connection. When did Kobe put up his notorious 81-point game? Against the Toronto Raptors, who Drake is an ambassador for. Even though that they took the mic from him and he can't talk anymore, he's still an ambassador, and we know how much he loves going to Raptors games. Keep it going.
Peekaboo, popping out, you better not smell my name.
Popping out, you better not smut my name. Now this right here is the boogeyman popping out for me. This is playing Peekaboo and playing games on Drake. Kendrick Lamar popped out on Drake. He also had the pop out concert. You better not smut my name. Well, what was one of the big turning points in the battle and the beef? It was after Drake really started to smut Kendrick's name, right? When he starts bringing Kendrick's family into the equation, right? When he starts questioning Kendrick's character, he starts to bring Whitney up. We all know how Family Matters went because the KO and real personal directs came afterwards from Kendrick Lamar and Meet the Grams, and he followed that up with Not Like Us. But it goes further.
Peekaboo, why you acting tough on IG Live?
Why you acting tough on IG Live? Drake loves to take to his Instagram. You know, in the Meek Mill beef, whenever Drake gets involved in battles, he loves to see himself as a kind of a meme god, right? He loves to troll. He loves to weaponize social media to his advantage. And one of the ways that he does that is through his Instagram Live and his little rants that he goes on, and him always coming through with the tough talk. And he's used that to troll Kendrick Lamar, to try to exert influence over his audience, to make Kendrick look bad throughout the beef. But Drake kept dangling the carrot, saying he wanted Kendrick to not run away, like dropping his control verse and people not hearing from him. He wanted Kendrick to see this one through. I think he got way more above and beyond what he asked for.
Hey, 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 that's my bitch. Hey, 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 that's my bitch.
Hey, 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 hey. It's Fat Albert. Quit sleeping on Bill Cosby and quit sleeping on these lyrics. Because we talked about the correlation of this hey, hey, hey and what it could possibly mean in Not Like Us.
Hey, 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 run for your life.
That for me is a direct callback to his most iconic Drake diss. And why would he keep breadcrumbing all these little references? Well, because he wants you to know who this song is meant for. He wants you to know who that person is that he's talking about. He's taking a lot of Drake sort of medicine and using those same tactics against him. And now that I think about it, hey, that's my bitch. Obviously, you get the direct Bill Cosby reference to that, but you could take it a step further. Kendrick is, well, he's calling Drake his female dog. Now, what's important here is we start the song with a sample, that Thought Crimes reference, which connects back to Silent Hill. Not only is it a Give Me a Helping Hand sample from Little Beaver, but there's also a tieback and a call-in once more to the Helping Hand Challenge from Xxtentacion. It's very interesting that this is the intro. This is what sets the tone. And for Thought Crimes, and for me as well, this is what makes that sort of, that synergy and that connection that Kendrick's known. He does it throughout albums, right? And it makes sense for him to tie albums together as well. But, you know, you have like a sample, you have a sound that calls back to a previous song. you have a message that calls back to a previous track and therefore just continues that correlation. You know, you saw it with the Spanish guitars, the Spanish singing throughout GNX, but this feels like one of those moments of correlation from Kendrick, one of those deeper connections. And ultimately, this is a very West Coast vibe. There's a lot of West Coast slang to it. There's a West Coast balance. It's definitely a celebration of Kendrick's culture. Now, what does this mean? It feels like we're playing a game of Clue almost, and we're just like kind of methodically following the different key points, the different cues that Kendrick is setting up to point the finger at a certain person. What is Kendrick in the middle of right here? Triple Xxtentacion. He's in the middle of an X. He's playing Peekaboo. He's popping out. He already had Euphoria. He's had a lot of levels, a lot of Drake disses. We're in the A minor chain. I don't think it's a coincidence that Peekaboo is on this and he's in the middle of an X. And whether it's accusations of Drake being involved in Tentacion's assassination, now that's something that I can't objectively say, yes it is. That there is just critical, cold, hard evidence pointing in that direction. Because I can definitely see Drake trolling. I can definitely see Drake taking advantage of a situation to further his tough imagery. But even then, with having Kodak Black on the track, with that connection, with the way that Kendrick is positioning all this, it always feels like he's one step ahead of Drake. It always feels like he does have insider information on Drake, and he's really tapped into how Drake's moving. And he's tapped into the stories about Drake. And this could be one of those situations where he's just reminding Drake that he's aware of how he moves. He's aware of his actions, and it's a warning. You know, you never know when Peekaboo is going to happen and Kendrick is going to pop out once again. But what do you guys think? Does this story have legs? Is there a substantiated connection there? Comment down below and let me know what you think, how you view the situation. But I really thought this was one of the more interesting connections, one of the more interesting correlations from the world of GNX to the world of Miss Morale and the Big Steppers. And listen, I think Miss Morale and the Big Steppers is just one of the most underrated Kendrick albums. You know, I did over a 5-hour breakdown that reminds me, I need to still try to get it cleared on YouTube so that we can appreciate it from all those years ago. But yeah, I still love that album, and I think it's still very important in the Kendrick timeline, and it really explains Kendrick's composure and Kendrick's state of being today and this Kendrick that we're getting. And I think Miss Morale was pivotal for Kendrick to have that inner acceptance, for him to be ready to take on Drake, to be such a warrior for the culture, and to take on what he sees as a lot of people taking advantage of it, and to really want to watch the party die. But anyways, as always, I love you guys. Stay safe, stay positive. Listen, if you're here at the end, obviously enjoy the content. Do me a huge favor. Subscribe, notifications on. Really, really does go a long way. Also, don't forget to copy your hats, copy your shirts. knoxhillmusic.com. Go get your merch. Go rep the brand. Go get it out there. It all goes a long way. Also, hop on the Patreon. More reactions, more content on there. A great way to support the channel. All right, guys, I love you. Stay safe, stay positive. As always, take care of your headspaces. Take care of this, right? Take care of your souls. Take care of your energy. Take care of your time. I'll catch you again.
Sit down, sit down. Like, wow, how we do it like that? Like, wow, how we do it like that? Like, wow, how we do it like that? Like, wow, better sit your ass.